Hello, and welcome to another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Craig Andersen.
I'm Chris Costa.
Hey Chris, how
you
you doing?
Good.
So what are we going to do today?
Well, I know you've got a couple of CRM videos out. We've looked at the home screen. I thought maybe we could look at the customer
Okay, that's
screen
great.
tonight.
Yeah, the customer view is the another view in CRM, the new CRM module, and it is actually probably the most prominent or most important view in CRM because that's where you get access to all the customer information from one location. Okay. So this is a very critical view in CRM. So we're going to go through that. So why don't I give you first a quick little overview of it, and then we can start to break down the different areas of it.
Okay, makes sense. Sure.
All right, so right now we are looking at the Home tab on the Home view. So I'm going to come up here and I can expand my dashboard panel, and I can either click on the customer view here to access the new customer view, or I can click on the button up here in the corner, which is what I'll do. All right, so now what we have in front of us is a screen that displays a list of customers. So this list of customers should be the customers that, one, you have access to as a salesperson or a CSR.
Right.
So the list will dynamically change. And also, depending on how you set up the customer, you can view customers, prospects, or all. So let me show you how you do that. So right up here is a filter that allows you to change the list of customers. Right now we're looking at all customers, which includes both customers and prospects. And I can click on this and change the list. It didn't change that much. But if I click prospects, I only have one prospect. So where in enterprise do you distinguish whether it's a customer or prospect, and what is the difference? Well, a prospect technically is a client that you're working with, and you may be providing estimates to that client, but they have not yet ordered from you.
True.
Until they actually place an order, they will be a prospect. And once that order is placed, then they become a customer. So one of the features that we can do, if we go into the list again, I can highlight any of the customers. And I want you to note that the area down below, which I can move around on the screen here, any customer that is highlighted, all the detail that we see below is pertinent to the specific customer highlighted, all right? But let's go into this customer's information directly by double-clicking. So that gives me now the customer maintenance screen. And on the customer maintenance screen, this is the same exact screen that you're used to in Enterprise. And if you go on to the different tabs, specifically the miscellaneous tab, you will see the checkbox that says active customer. Or you also have the two radio buttons that say customer and prospect. So that's where you first set up the customer, or in this case the prospect, and you would check off that flag, and you would check off active because you're actively working with them.
Okay.
So they're an active prospect, and the radio button is selected to designate that this particular account is in a prospect mode, okay? So once you've done that, then as you work in your list and you filter to the prospects, that list will be dynamically changed and present you with just the prospects. So this helps you work and focus on the sales activity related to prospects. Let's go back to all. I can also change this list depending on my access rights in the system. If I'm a system administrator or a manager, I can actually view or have more view than, say, somebody that is just a designated sales rep or a CSR.
Okay.
In a lot of companies, salespeople are isolated to their particular accounts, and that's the information they see. But as a manager or an administrator, I want to be able to see everybody.
True.
So assuming I have that administrative rights, which I do in this system, I can actually see all, or I can pick a sales rep and actually filter down and look at just Bob's accounts. And if we're using multi-plant, we would be able to select a specific plant that may have certain accounts that are tied directly to that plant. Okay?
Now, Craig, one question. If I add a customer in Enterprise, it's going to show up in CRM.
Yes.
It's one and the same.
It's the same database.
Okay.
CRM is just another module that is pulling information out of the Enterprise database. The advantage to CRM as opposed to Enterprise is Enterprise was originally designed as an estimate or order system. You created an estimate or an order,
Right.
and everything would hang off of that estimate and order. So if you remember in Enterprise, when you opened up the estimate and order entry window, you would get a list of what? Estimates or orders,
True.
depending on what view option you had. Then to drill into the account that belonged to and so forth, you had to go into different areas or different views. CRM kind of all consolidates that now and looks at everything from the customer level. So you now look at a customer, highlight a customer, and see everything down below pertaining to that account, address and contact and so forth. So let's go through that kind of quickly. Highlight a customer, information below switches. Right now I'm looking at the address tab. This gives me the ability, if I have the access rights to do so, to update and modify the address information. That is, again, still, as you brought up, part of the same enterprise customer table that everybody's used to seeing.
Right, so that'll write back into the enterprise
Exactly.
tables. Yeah.
Exactly. The next tab is the contact tab. So all we've done in this case is we've now exposed that contact tab, contact table in the enterprise to a tab that's now residing in CRM.
Right.
So we have a list of contacts, but we've done some added different things here. You can double click the contact and actually pull up the contact screen that everybody's used to seeing. And if you have the ability to modify this, you can do that. You can also click any of the action buttons over on the right-hand side here to modify or view, copy, or even delete, if you have the access rights to do so, a particular contact. Okay? You've also got the ability, if you are using the CRM email functionality, to click on the email address that you see here. Because if you look at this email address, it actually has a line under it. So it actually is a live hyperlink that will actually open up the CRM email window, allowing me to actually send an email directly to that contact. Now, I think I mentioned in my previous video that we're going to be doing a video specifically on emails.
Right.
All right, so I'm not going to go into any greater depth here, but this is basically just highlighting the fact that you have this ease of accessibility to different features from one area.
Okay.
Okay? So we'll close this up. And do I want to save it? No. The next section is a Customer Details tab. The intent behind this tab was to provide your company with the ability to create 19 more user-definable fields with the intent of using those fields to uniquely identify specific characteristics or different characteristics of your customer types for marketing purposes. These user-definable fields, unlike other areas in enterprise, are not designed to show up on any production documentation, such as job ticket, invoices, or whatever. These fields here are intended for the sole purpose of helping you market your customers better. So you have access to 19 user-definable fields, but we only see, what, 4 here, because we've done something new. We've actually added a new feature in CRM that a user-definable field does not show itself until you've titled it.
Okay.
Once you title it, and then of course build the list behind it, it then shows up.
Okay.
So I've set up 4 test ones here. And these aren't great examples because some of these are actually redundant and kind of match like marketing zone. That's sort of similar to regional code in enterprise. But I wanted to kind of demonstrate the unique ability here where I can then develop a series of user-definable field drop-downs that'll allow me to categorize all the customers I work with. Unique situations. So when I run a distribution list for a blast email or for a mail-in campaign using the CRM feature, which again we'll talk about in greater detail, I can use these fields to help narrow that list down to certain types of customers.
Okay.
Okay? The Ship To tab shows all the ship tos. And again, notice I can decide if I need more real estate below by expanding the panel up, or I can expand it down. But I get all the ship tos, which I can do an add, modify, or delete. But we also have another feature that we can do in many different areas. I can go to the customer and I can right click. Remember we talked about the context menus on the home view in the previous video.
Right.
So a right click now gives me another context menu. When I do it from the customer's name up top, I get certain functionality. I can add a new customer, edit this one, delete this one if I have the ability. Chargeback codes and credit cards can be managed. And then we have 3 other functionalities: creating an email using the CRM email, creating a task, or an appointment. And again, we're going to go into unique videos specifically about those 3 different options.
Okay.
But I can perform that function from here. I can also do that by right-clicking on a specific ship to. And that will also give me a context menu that will allow me to perform certain functionalities. So anywhere in the system there is a list like this, then I am able to right-click on the items in the list and usually get access to a context menu. Another important comment is that these lists, whether it's up here or on the Ship To tab or on the Contact tab, and when we get to these other tabs as well, just left-click on the column header and you get what? The same enterprise search window, right?
Okay.
So that functionality is exactly the same. I can also right-click and then click Options and get that same options window that we're used to seeing, where they can go in and modify their columns and so forth.
Okay. Now, Craig, not to interrupt you here, but you've mentioned a couple times access required. If I'm understanding correctly, you mean that the user would have to have rights from the main user manager section to do some of these functions here.
Yeah, good point.
Delete
So,
or add or something like
yeah,
that.
the user's ability to perform certain functionality or use certain functionality in CRM is still riding on top of the existing enterprise security access controls.
Yep.
So we've actually added some new controls, and we'll be adding even more controls to accommodate some of the extra functionality that's been developed in CRM that enterprise never had to worry about.
Right, right.
But everything right now, all users are riding on top of their existing access control. So you set the user up, and I think in my first video I showed how you check off a user to actually access a CRM system.
right.
But you would also, in that same area, still define what they have access to. So if they don't have the ability to modify or delete a customer, only view access basically, then that's all they're going to have here.
Outstanding.
Okay? The next one is your RFQ. So if you're using RFQs in our system, you will have a list of RFQs for this customer that's highlighted.
Right.
Simple demonstration again to keep, showing this functionality. If I click on another customer, that list, well, I don't have any RFQs for this customer. What about this one? Nope. Do I for this one? Nope. Go back to here, I have RFQs. So I then get a list presented to me based on my interaction with the customer. So this is diving right into the same enterprise database, looking at any RFQs that have been created for this particular customer.
Okay.
To see the RFQ, I can double click it, which will actually open up the RFQ header screen. Same screen that you're used to seeing in enterprise, but now you're accessing it through CRM. Do whatever you need to do here, modify it, just save it, review it. I'm going to hit cancel. I can also right click and hit edit, which again opens up the same exact window. So I was just be able to access it through a right click. Or I can hit the edit or add button over here and accomplish the same access. We also have panels down below. This particular panel is an Rfq Details Panel. I can hide that panel by hitting that little arrow. That now gives me more viewability of the list. I can scroll down more in the list. I can hit this panel arrow here and expand that panel. So any RFQ I highlight, the information below will change. Okay? So I have access to diary notes and files and images. So those are diary notes that pertain to that particular RFQ and files and images that would pertain to that particular or highlighted RFQ.
Okay.
Okay? If we go to the Estimate tab, we get an estimate list. And we also below have a estimate details section. I still have a button that has diary notes, which is actually in a blue highlight. So that would indicate there is a diary note associated to that. File image button. I can also access the quote and analysis. So again, by just highlighting the particular estimate, I can print the quote and the analysis right from here.
Okay.
Okay. I can still double click it like we have with everything else and open up the actual estimate header window for that estimate and perform whatever editing I need to do. We have the right context menus where we can perform certain functions as well as send an email, create a task that's associated to that particular estimate, create an appointment associated to that estimate. And in our CRM, we have a new feature called Sales Notes. And again, there's going to be a video just about Sales Notes because we don't want to keep these things going on too long. But Sales Notes can be applied within CRM within different areas, all related to interaction with the client pertaining to their account or estimates or orders and even contacts.
Sure.
Okay. So on the Audit tab, Chris, we have different orders in a list, just like we do with the Estimate tab. The difference here is we've given the CSRs access to more information because the orders are actually in production. So we've done some things so the CSR could potentially be on the phone with the client, and the client may be asking, well, where's my job stand?
Right.
So we've done some things to help with that. And one of the things we've done is we've created this progress bar. It's at 0% when it's to the left, and if this bar was completely full, it would be 100% complete. Why is this red? Well, we have two color states. We have a green and a red.
Right.
Green indicates that it is still before the due date that is established in the job. And red is that even though it's only 33% complete, as you see here, it's past the due date.
Okay.
So it's late as well.
Right.
Okay? So it's not even halfway done and it's late. So how is this progress bar doing the math? Well, if you have 10 processes in the job, and 5 of those processes have been marked as completed in Enterprise through data collection or scheduling, then that would display automatically here, indicating the percentage of processes compared to the total number of processes that have been marked as complete.
Okay.
Okay? So this one is only 33% complete, but it's red because it's actually after the due date. So that's not a good thing. Down below, we've given some extra information also in this order detail panel where it, again, can be collapsed down or it can be expanded up. The first tab in this section is the Job Details tab. We can also see the last operation. We can see the job schedule, purchase orders that exist against the job, materials used, and when I do that, I get an extra button down here that allows me to click on View Details. So this brings up the Materials Job Entry window, so I can see the specific materials that have been documented on this particular part of the job. Accumulated production that have been marked as complete, and again, I can view the details of each of those entries. I have also shipments and packages that may be documented in that as well. Okay, and this little arrow just gives me access to all the different tabs again. Now, I also have all the buttons off to the side, as well as running the quote, the analysis, and I can also do the job ticket. And we've also added a button specifically so they can access shipping. Okay, right from here. So, again, the intent here from this job orders tab is to give the user the ability to see a lot of information without having to navigate to different areas in the program.
Okay, looks good. Yeah.
The next tab is Notes, and this is pertaining to Sales Notes. And I did mention we were going to do a video just on Sales Notes, but I'll give you a little synopsis. So CRM allows you to make entries into the CRM system, which we commonly refer to Sales Notes. Those can be done right here. So when I make an entry here, that would be generic against the whole account. But I can also right-click and add a sales note on an estimate, an order, or even a contact and an invoice.
Right.
So those notes not only get entered against that account, but they get entered against that specific estimate or that specific contact or invoice.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll go through that again in more detail. The next tab here is Invoices. So if I go to one of my other companies, we have a list of invoices. Same general concept as to how you access the information. You can access by double-clicking and opening up the actual invoice screen. You can hit edit if you want. So you get the invoice screen. You can right click, perform those various functions, as well as, again, email the invoice, create a task, an appointment, or again, add an invoice note, which is like a sales note.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, does that work with invoicing and AR? Or?
No, this actually is specific to AR,
AR
our
only.
AR module. So in order to use the invoicing tab, the system recognizes that you own AR
Okay.
and makes that tab available.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. This next area here, we actually have a snapshot view, and I think this is a pretty cool view. We just added this about a month ago. And the concept here is to give the user kind of a quick overview of everything regarding that account. Now, we have a dashboard area, as you saw in the home view,
Right.
which you can put all sorts of gauges and charts on screen. But this is focused to this pertinent customer. So every customer I select or change, this information will change.
Okay.
Okay. And we decided or picked certain gauges that were would give the user the right information that they needed quick. Okay. So basically over here we give kind of a little overview of the account. They've been with us for 8 years, 9 months. Average days to pay 495 days. Well, that's horrible, but it's here. Open balances again is pretty high. And their credit limit, well, they only have a $100 credit limit, so I don't even know how we work with these guys. But again, this is the information they can see quickly. You get a sales summary below, which you can change by different months or year to date. And that's total sales and total sales for same period last year. So you get a comparison. I can see that I'm not as doing good this year as I was last year. And over here we have a frame that loads all the invoices, and I can double click on this and actually print the invoice to screen. Or I can click on this quick report and actually print the, I believe it is the agent details report or detailed agent report. So this is all the open invoices on that account. Okay. And I have to the right of that estimates by customer account. So again, this is one of the same type of gauges that you have on the dashboard, but it's constructed to be specifically for estimates by this customer account. And then below, we've done orders by this customer account. And if we go back to the left here, we have recent payments. So this is a list of recent payments and the dates and basic information. And then we have a chart here that's not showing anything, but this is sales by customer account. So we have a snapshot here that is actually showing some pretty good detail related to this account. As well as in the very bottom here, we have an accounts receivable agent chart. Now we are going to be adding another chart in this open real estate here, which is going to show the last 5 years, starting with the current year. Each year will represent a line, and you can either view it from left to right by month or by quarter. But you'll basically be able to see how you have performed sales-wise on that account for the past 5 years over each month or quarter, depending on how you want to look at it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's something that's coming around the corner.
Right.
Okay, so the snapshot here is a pretty good feature, gives access to a lot of information quickly. And again, that's the whole concept behind CRM here. The next tab here is files and images. So this is where, as you know, you can store files and images in Enterprise against estimates and orders and so forth, or on the account.
Sure.
This is just another way that you can access that. So when I'm looking at the files and images from this tab, these are all the files and images related to that account. And I can either add another one, I can delete one, or I can view one from here. Okay? So when you look at the files and images, like from the estimate screen by clicking on this button, I'm actually looking at the files and images pertinent to the highlighted job.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
But from here, I'm actually looking at all the files and images.
For that customer, for everything, yep.
Okay. The next tab here, which we can touch base on a little bit, but it's kind of related to emails and calendars and events. But I'll give the general premise here. in CRM, we have 3 things that are classified as events. Emails, calendar, and tasks. So when you create a task, it creates an event with a unique event ID in the system. When you create a calendar appointment, it creates an event with a unique event ID. And when you send or receive an email, it creates a unique event ID. And that's what helps tie everything together.
Right.
This event tab is basically a user admin area. It's not a tab that they're going to go to on a regular basis. They may hardly ever go to it,
Right.
but it's there. And it's there for the purpose of giving them the ability to search for things they know or thought existed, like an email that they can't seem to find, or a calendar appointment they can't seem to find. Or maybe I got an email sent to me, but it was really meant for you. And I could reassign it to you if I have the permissions to do so. Okay. So in here are a list of all the different events pertinent to the highlighted customer. And right now I'm looking at all types, but I could filter this by sales rep, CSR, estimate, or shop floor. I could actually filter this list by documented CRM users in the system, in the user manager. I could filter, is it an email event, a calendar, a task, or all? I could look at event type, which would be unassigned, general, RFQ, estimate, order, and invoice. Well, let me explain RFQ, estimate, and order, and invoice. When you create an event like an email that you send from the estimate screen by right-clicking on the estimate, you're not only sending an email to that account from you, the user, with that estimate attached to it, but it's now linked directly to that estimate. Okay. And when we send emails out or receive emails in, depending on where you sent or triggered that event from, it will get documented in a certain category. So an email or a calendar appointment created from the estimate tab, from an estimate, would be documented as an estimate type event. Okay?
Makes sense.
So we'll get into more detail with that later as well. Sales activity type. We're going to talk about this during the email, but you have the ability to filter this list based on the sales activity types that you have defined in the system when you set up CRM. Okay? And that's kind of a calendar task user definable field that we'll talk about when we talk about calendars and tasks. Okay. But this is where it shows up. So again, by highlighting this or double clicking it, I can actually open up the event and see the conversation of this email. I can't respond to it. I can't resend it. I can't reply to it. I can just review it and read it. So why is that important? Well, again, I may need to be able to find it quickly. And I can reassign it. So I can come down here if I have the permission to do so and say, well, this email was actually really meant for Joanne. So I could assign it to Joanne in that list. So now that email will show up as owned by her when she's in CRM.
Sure.
And you have to have admin sort of access rights to be able to reassign events. Okay?
Right.
So it's a maintenance area. Just think of this as a maintenance area. You may not use it all the time. The next tab is the email tab. I will show this just to show you how you can see emails, but we'll talk about how you actually create them and deal with them. But this tab here is one way of seeing emails. Now, emails I said are events, so I can see the email dialogue as an event, but this actually looks at an email in the normal fashion that we're used to. Okay. So here are some of those categories. Remember you saw those categories in that drop-down? If I click on this estimate one and click here, I can now see that I sent an email with a quotation attached as a test to the particular receiver. And this was that person's recipient's response back. He said, thank you for the quote. So I can see the back and forth dialogue pertinent to those emails. And depending on which one I'm highlighted, I will have access to certain function buttons up here on the top. Because there's an attachment here, I can actually double click this and open up that attachment and see that actual quotation that was sent. So the advantage to CRM and using the CRM email functionality, other than using like Outlook, is that this is a global access. So we as a team, you, Joanne, and myself can be a team. and we can be sending emails in and out of CRM to our clients. But when you're out on vacation or out sick, I will be able to cover for you.
Right.
Because I will be able to see your emails. And again, when we do the email video, we'll talk about how you're flagged of those. But I can see that and I can respond back. And then when you come back in, you'll be able to see the responses that somebody else has done on your behalf. So that's the advantage.
Very good.
The last tab here is the My To Do tab. And this is where we have made a text-based version of what you have for appointments. So you have calendars you can look at, and we saw 2 small calendars in the favorites tab, right? And we also have a larger calendar that shows up by clicking that button, so I can see my appointments. And I can click on my task calendar as well and see my appointments, which defaults to the week, and I can change it to the month, all right? But I can see my to-dos that have been set up, or that anybody, for that fact, any CRM user has set up pertinent to this customer. Because remember, we're in the customer view, so what I'm seeing in these tabs is related to the highlighted customer, right?
Right.
Okay. So I can see it in a list format. I can actually double click it and open up the same appointment window that you would get to create it, and this would allow me to edit it and maybe change the date and time.
Okay.
Okay, and again, we'll get into more detail with that during the calendar video. I can also print this. So I can print, I want to do a date range, go all the way back, or let's say I just want to do one day, but I'm going to go back because my information is kind of old here. And it defaults to the particular account that's highlighted, and I can look for just me, or I can look for one of the other users. And I can filter it by type, so I can look at the type or the status. So when I look at event type, I can look at all, which is either a combination of calendars and a task appointment, or I can select one or the other. And then I would print that to the screen. Now I can get myself a daily, if I want to print it out each day, a list of tasks, or I may want to print it for my week. These are the things that I've documented in CRM that need to be done for the week.
Sure.
Okay?
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay. So that is a good view of most of the things that you can do in the customer view.
Yeah, look good, yeah.
So there's a lot of information that you can access very quickly from here. So the next videos that we're going to do, and they're not going to be in this order, but we're going to have one about just dealing with emails, send and receive, and where you can do those, how they interlink with customers and estimates and orders. We're going to have a video about creating calendars and task appointments and how you can link those to contacts, customers, and orders and so forth. And then we're going to talk about sales notes.
Okay.
Okay. So those are the other subviews that I think we'll do those 3 videos next. And then the final videos will be the report view, which is another major view in CRM, and the main event view, which is different from the events tab because it allows you to look at events for the whole system, for all the customers and all the users, not just a highlighted customer.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So any questions?
No, I think that was a very good look.
Okay.
It was very good, very helpful.
All right. Well,
Thank
great.
you.
Well, this was another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Craig Andersen.
I'm Chris Costa.
Be sure to look for more to come, and thank you.